Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming to the second part of our Water Conservation Strategies Water Talks series. My name is Meadow Fitton, and I coordinate the Water Talks program for California Trout. Yay! Before we begin, I just want to let everyone know that the restrooms are at the entrance of the museum in case you missed that and later you need to go. And then also, if you could just take a moment and find your cell phone or something that makes noise and put it on the quiet mode or turn it off for the duration of our program, that would be wonderful. And can I just get a show of hands if you've never been to a Water Talks program before? Oh, good. There are quite a few of you. And how many of you attended our first Water Conservation Strategies program? A number of you too. So thank you so much for coming to our second part. And that makes me know that we can watch our water supply video again, because not all of you have seen it. So quickly, I'll just go over what the Water Talks program is. It's an ongoing series run by California Trout with presentations with experts on water-related topics. And it's really exciting. Tonight is our 29th program, and there's been 84 people, look at these friendly faces, who have volunteered their time to present to the community. So it's regional and local experts that come to share information on water-related topics for the purpose of providing a place to learn about water-related topics. And I don't know why he keeps doing that, but our goal, our long-term goal here is to increase informed participation in water policy by providing a place for community members to interact and learn about water-related topics. Our format is we run from 6 to 8 p.m. with no breaks. So again, if you need to use the restroom, please do so. If you need some tea or cookies, please help yourself. We do this introduction, we run through our presentations, and then we have a question and answer period. We'll close the evening. If you didn't get your question answered, you'll have an opportunity to come up and interact with our presenters for the evening. So here we are tonight for our second in the Water Conservation series. And the main question that we are revolving around for this series is just how can Mount Shasta area residents conserve water and be prepared for extended drought? And this series is co-sponsored with the City of Mount Shasta and funded by a grant from the Department of Water Resources under the Prop 84 money. And the City of Mount Shasta is doing 2 projects, which Paul Reuter will update you on tonight, as well as CalTrout is partnered with the city to do the education aspects of those projects. So what we're hoping for you to learn tonight is to know where to go for drought information. That's the website. This presentation and all the presentations tonight will be available on the city's water conservation website. So you don't need to take frantic notes. You can have all the information after the presentation, so you can just enjoy and listen. The second thing we'd like you to know is where to go for water conservation tips and information. The state is running the SaveOurWater.com website, and it is chock full of information of what to do inside your home, what to do outside of your home, and it's very user-friendly and easy to navigate. So that is where we want you to go. And then the main part of our program is going to be having you be familiar with leak detection and repair, both inside and outside of your residence or business. And then to be exposed to examples of water conservation techniques, including rainwater catchment systems, gray water systems, efficient irrigation, and native plants and food plants. So just a quick pop quiz question. True or false? Californians use more water inside the home than outside the home. True or false? False. Okay, so we use more water outside the home. What percentage, roughly, do we use outside of the home? Okay, more than 50%. So I think that is why That is why we're focusing the bulk of our presentations on what we can do outside of the home tonight. Okay, so on to the overview of our program, and then you don't have to listen to me anymore. You get to listen to all the interesting people we have here tonight. We are going to look at a view of Mount Shasta's water system video, just to get you oriented, if you are a city resident, where the city's water supply comes from and how that system works. And then a very brief update from Sean Powell with the City of Mount Shasta on what the spring is producing right now and the recently passed city's drought resolution. Then Paul Reuter will update you on the water supply line replacement and water meters installation projects. Then we'll enter our program with Dylan Coleman, Sean Powell, Jay Krez, Julie Jokey, and Leslie Tift. So that's what you have to look forward to. And so without further ado, we will look at the video. But I did just want to show you, this is the Save Our Water website. And if you go right here of what you can do and ways to save, there is this water saving tips, which is really cool. And let's just do an example of in the kitchen. See how they have these little plus signs? And you can click on it. And so here's an example of a tip. Collect the water you use while rinsing your fruit and vegetables and use it to water your houseplants. So there's a million of those simple things that we know we could do, but we don't because we don't have to. But since we are in a drought, these are things that you might not think of. So I just encourage everyone to go to this website. Probably takes half an hour, max an hour, to read all the things, and then you can start practicing them. Okay, so let us get introduced to the city's water supply.
The City of Mount Shasta's water supply is dependent on natural precipitation that falls on Mount Shasta. The infrastructure consists of cold springs, 4 storage tanks, a water supply line, 2 wells, distribution pipes, and the SCADA system. Cold Springs is the principal source of water for the city. The spring emerges at 4,167 feet and is located at the top of McLeod Avenue. The spring water fills 4 tanks with a combined storage capacity of 1.7 million gallons and is gravity fed. The water in Mount Shasta is untreated and comes out of your tap at a crisp 41 degrees. During low spring yield periods, the city's maximum daily demand exceeds the city's source capacity.
We're at Cold Springs, which is the primary water source for the city of Mount Shasta. Common belief is that the water we drink is an old and unlimited supply. This particular springs is relatively young. The water's age is anywhere from 0 to 1.6 years old. As a result, it's very influenced by weather patterns, and particularly drought. And we noticed this most recently last summer when production of the springs dropped to historical lows. As temperatures rise due to climate change, we anticipate receiving less snowpack in the spring's recharge area. On average, the spring produces about 2,000 gallons per minute. That amount of water usually meets the city's demand, at least for most part of the year. During the critical summer months, the city does supplement the spring's production with water from wells that are down in town.
We're at the Mount Shasta Quail Hill water storage tanks. There are 3 tanks at this site, comprising about 1.2 million gallons of storage. Water from this site is served by Cold Springs, which is located about 1.5 miles upstream of here. And water at this site, it comes together in a series of pipelines and serves the city of Mount Shasta, which is comprised of about 35 miles of 1 through 12-inch pipelines. Within that system, there are 4 pressure zones that serve various areas as you go down in elevation. And within the pressure zones, there are 2 wells that serve the city when supply from the spring is not enough to keep up with demand. Our proposed project here is to replace the existing pipeline that currently serves this site. It'll be about 9,000 feet of new pipeline that we're proposing to put in McLeod Avenue.
We're here at Well 1. It's located at Washington and Lake Street. Well 1 is our primary well. It has a capacity of about 850 to 900 gallons per minute. Well 1 and Well 2 are typically used in the summertime to supplement the spring production. Last year was different. In the summer of 2014, spring production was as low as it's been in the last 20 years. We found that we had to run these two wells 12 to 18 hours per day to keep up with the demand. Peak demand times are around 3 to 8 a.m. when irrigation systems are coming on and people are getting ready for work, and then again in the evenings as people return from work. It was during these peak times that our Quail Hill tanks were reaching unusually low levels, and even with the wells running all day, it was taking a long time for the tanks to recover. In Mount Shasta, our average daily usage reached around 900 gallons per person per day. I think it's important to remember that we do have a fairly reliable water source, but it is not unlimited.
With climate change and potentially increasing temperatures, we do expect that it's going to become more and more important to both monitor and possibly conserve our water use going forward.
Thank you. Pusher Inc. in the room here who's videoing tonight made that video for the city, so thank you. It's really helpful. For the people who are coming in, we do have a few more seats down here if you want to take a moment. There's some, if you want to hop down and go right here, and a few in there. Just don't be shy. Come down and find a comfortable seat while we get going, or get the next piece up. Hi. Okay, so we'll, I didn't want to go from the start. Okay, so Sean, if you want to come give us the update on where we are in 2015.
Hi everybody, I'm Sean Powell. I'm the Public Works Supervisor for the City of Mount Shasta. Over the last couple months here, we've been really monitoring closely, especially with the decline of the end of the year 2014. You can see it taper off. 2015, due to the snowpack starting to melt, and we've had some very helpful rain that was unexpected here recently. We're actually starting to tick up a little bit towards the 1,500 gallons per minute mark, which, as you can see, is still well below average for this time of year. We're still hurting in the water production department. So that's where we are with the springs. And what do you do to do a next slide on this? Okay. Is there another slide after that? Just this? Okay. So City Council has passed a resolution for water conservation effective June 1st, 2015. Pretty much the highlights of this are focused towards irrigation for the most part. No watering between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. There's odd number days water on odd number houses work and water on certain days of the week. Even numbered houses water on other days of the week. This is to try and spread out that water demand throughout the week and not have everybody running their sprinklers at once, which would drain the tanks. And then the other highlights of this are that if you're going to wash your vehicle, please do so with a nozzle that closes. We don't want to see any runoff onto the streets if we can avoid it, stuff like that. And we will be out there. I've had my crew keep an eyes out, and we've been making customer contact as much as we can and letting folks know that this resolution is going into effect. And we've been working closely with the PD and the fire department, and they'll be coming around. And if we see anything, we'll let you know and try to correct it. So You can get the rest of that information, by the way. You can contact City Hall, and it's on the website, I believe, the city website, the resolution. For all the details, it's like a 2.5-page resolution. It has all the rules and regs for what we need to start focusing on effective June 1. So.
Thank you, Sean. And now we get to have an update from Paul Reuter, who is from Pace Engineering and the city's engineer on the 2 water projects.
Thank you, Meadow. Good evening, everyone. As Meadow indicated earlier, the city was fortunate enough to obtain a couple of grants through Department of Water Resources to add water meters to all the services in town and to replace a significant section of the supply pipeline from the spring. Those projects were designed and bid a couple months ago, and 2 contractors from the Reading area were the low bidders on those projects. The contractor doing the meter replacement work is White Hawk Construction out of the Reading area. They're actually centered in Palo Cedro. They started work about 2 weeks ago, and through the end of yesterday, they've installed about 162 meters. Has anybody in here had a meter go in yet? Oh, great. I hope it went smoothly. I know the contractors are working hard. There's not a lot of time to get all the work done, and they're trying to get things installed and cleaned up as they go. They're running 2 5-man crews, and they'll be adding another crew next week to start installing the larger meters, the 2-inch through 6-inch meters and some of the big commercial services. So that should start happening next week. The focus of their work has been in the subdivisions west of the high school, kind of between Shasta and Rockfellow, and they'll continue out Rockfellow to the east and then work their way south. So it kind of gives you an idea and geographically the areas that they're going to focus on. And meanwhile, they'll be working on the larger meters as well. The supply line project is, the contractor for that project is RTA Construction out of Reading. And if you've been on McLeod Avenue, you may have seen a number of paint marks, different colors, blue, green, orange, and so on. And that's part of their underground USA locating work. Those utilities come out and mark their utilities on the ground. And then next week, starting Tuesday, RTA will have a crew up here and they'll start potholing those utilities to identify any conflicts with the water line before they go to install it. And then probably the week of June 1st, they'll start trenching the pipeline. I'm not sure exactly where they'll start, if they'll start at the lower end of McLeod or if they'll do the section from Quail Hill Drive up to the tanks. But within the next week, we'll know that. So there hasn't been much work on the ground on the supply line project, but within the next couple weeks, you'll see quite a bit happening. And that's about all I have to say about those.
Let's just take 2 minutes of questions in case for Paul, because it's the only time for meters and supply line. Dylan and then Doug.
The supply line, because it's old, right? Replaced and leaking possibly.
Yeah, the supply line from the springs down to the Quail Hill tanks is one of the oldest pieces of water infrastructure with the city. And it's 80 plus years old. It was made of spiral wound riveted steel pipe, which they haven't made for a number of years. It's relatively inaccessible, and the city's had leaks in it over the years that never realized it had leaks because you can't get to all of it easily. And then when there is a leak, it's very difficult to fix because you can't get equipment in there. So the idea is to, put that one to rest. It served the city well over 80, 90 years, and then build a new pipeline to McLeod Avenue that's more accessible and meets current construction standards.
My meter went in about 2 weeks ago, and I immediately identified a leak. And I calculated, based on how much I was watching it go by, about 20,000 gallons a year I could have lost. And without the meter, I wouldn't have known. And I'm a water miser. I won the award in Sedona for having the lowest water bill in the entire city, so I don't want to lose that much water. I'm using about 50 gallons a day here, outside and inside, with a really nice garden. And this thing was wasting more water than I was using.
Yeah.
So it worked.
That's great to hear, and hopefully there will be more stories like that as more meters get installed and everybody kind of gets used to having metered water. So,
Hopefully everybody will look at it and see whether whether they got a leak or not too.
yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
And last question, Renee? Well, I just wanted to confirm that it's fine for us to pop those open and take a look at the meters. They're really easy to access, and I look at it as a competitive sport. How much can I get it to go down? Is it fine to pop those boxes open and read our meters?
Absolutely, it is, and it's encouraged. And like you say, it's very easy to read. The meters have a little digital readout, you know, and it's very easy. You'll notice there's a little wire to a transceiver in the box. Just if you pull the lid off, you know, don't yank the lid up and pull the cord out of the meter. So you got to be careful with that. But yeah, feel free to access those.
I just had a question about what do we do when we see someone watering in the middle of the day and like copious amount of all the water? Turn them in.
I'm going to actually cover that in my leak detection thing. So yeah, we'll get to that one.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Paul, for the update. If you need more information about the city's projects, call City Hall, and they'll put you in touch with the right person for your question. And so with our updates complete, we're going to go into our program. We have 5 presenters tonight, which is very exciting. And first up is Dylan Coleman. So let me find his presentation and let me introduce him. In the meantime, do you want to put this on? I know you don't want to, but you put this.
Can I go with the thing?
Will you hold this one?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll give it back to you. Okay.
I just started emailing literally 5 years ago, so.
Okay. Oh, did I just start the movie again somehow?
You see what happens?
Okay. I know it's a really good video, but I don't think you want to see it again right now. Okay. So let's see. Get Dylan's. This is a pointer if you want to use it. And oh, is that from the start?
That's the second or third one.
Okay. Okay. Voila. Okay. So Dylan Coleman is a Mount Shasta resident, and he has been a building and landscape contractor. Okay, hold on a second. Is this doing it self-automatically?
Oh yeah, like slideshow, I think.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so he has been a building and landscape contractor for 15 years. And the last 7 years, he has specialized in rain catchment systems, wastewater recycling, and innovative irrigation concepts. He is also the co-founder of Save the Rain, a local nonprofit that teaches water-starved communities in East Africa to build rain catchment systems that provide a sustainable and clean water supply. So I'm sure you're going to have a really exciting presentation from Dylan, and without further ado.
Thanks, Meadow. Thanks, Meadow, for putting all this together. You're awesome. Okay, so I'm going to start here. I'm going to kind of start with an overview. The video was perfect because it's like, I think, always good to understand where the water comes from. I know growing up for me, I just knew I turned the tap on and there was water there, and that's essentially all I knew. So I always like to show the hydrologic cycle, which basically all of our water comes from rain, and it's important to see the interconnectedness of everything, the importance of protecting soils, trees, transpiration from those trees, creating cloud formations, which thus create rain. And then the runoff factors, how we lose our rain to the ocean if we don't protect it, slow it down, that sort of thing. So this is just a little thing here, and a little cute little quote from a project worker in Uganda who just really thought it was a brilliant summation. Yeah. God must think we're crazy. We let the rain fall off our roofs onto our soil. It washes the soil away and flows to the bottom of the hill. We then climb down to the hill and carry it back up to drink. Human beings, aren't we? And then another great quote from a superintendent of an agricultural experiment in Texas. The next slide I have is, this is just kind of something I pulled off that shows potential water supply issues by 2015, and obviously this is estimates, and some of this is exacerbated already due to, in just a few years of drought, we're seeing some pretty amazing impacts. So the red and tan areas are areas that they call it conflict potential, like highly likely. In other words, just not enough water to for the demand of whether it's agriculture or cities or whatever it is. So the conflict being, there's going to be fights, and there's going to be a lot going on to secure water. So you can see California's got a lot of red and orange and yellow. So I just thought this was an interesting. The Southwest is in deep trouble. In discussing the water use in California, so this is just a general, agriculture is the big, culprit. And so what we're going to be discussing about what we can do is kind of within that 20% realm. Is it slide showing on me? Okay. So as far as our households are concerned, this is kind of a general graph of, California household water use and where we use it. So you can see the showers, I'm surprised, are that low, actually. I know that what Meadow was saying with so much of this is about changing our habits, and so just going to that website, I think, is going to be huge, because it plants that seed for that idea of like, oh yeah, I'm wasting my water when I shave. Let me use that water. And I know when like for peeing example, I know people have a hard time wasting 1.5 gallons on a little bit of pee. It's like, just go outside and pee on a rock. The deer need the salt. So now. It was interesting, the average American consumes 180 gallons per person per day, and was it 900 for the Mount Shasta residents? I mean, you can attribute a lot of that to the bigger lot sizes, and and we have, but yeah, a lot of room for improvement there. Just some basic indoor conservation products that are out there. We've got new toilet options now. This is a dual flush toilet that's being used a lot. We've got very simple little flow reduction valves or low flow fixtures. I'm going to have to stay ahead of this thing. There's 1,000,001 different things you can do to reduce the output of your fixtures. I didn't have a slide, but I should have put it in here. Solar thermal hot water heaters are very important. He mentioned the crisp 41-degree water. How many of you turn on your water for hot water and you sit there and wait for minutes? So there are recirculation things you can add to your existing hot water heaters. I encourage solar thermal water heating systems. They're fantastic, because they passively heat your cold water up to a temperature so you're not using as much, and it's hotter at the point of use. And then there's on-demand water heaters now too. I focus on kind of the alternative solutions, and one of them is rain catchment. And rain catchment is on roofs and also on the surface to maximize our rainfall, because it is a really abundant source, even in the drought years, and something that we're really not making the most use of. So this is just a little stat, and for you to see how much water you can actually get with a very small amount of rain. And Los Angeles has actually ripping up all their concrete and asphalt and going into infiltration and storage because they realized that, wow, you know, we could get half of our water needs through collecting the rainfall. Here's some of the benefits of collecting rainwater. And so this is just, you know, it's varied. There's lots of benefits. It's fingered, or it spreads out to different things. I like to show this slide because I don't know if anyone flies over the state of California, you kind of see this, you know, where you see the erosive ridges and kind of bare, denuded mountains and landscapes, and especially in the middle and eastern part of the state. And this is an example of a watershed that's, you know, not making use of its resources. And then this is where we really want to be as far as a healthy watershed and maximizing storage. One quote I remember from this Indian project worker, he said, "Where the water runs, we want to make it walk. Where it walks, we want to make it crawl. Where it crawls, we want, you know, it's just, you just want to slow it down, get it to infiltrate, store it, use it." And in doing so, there's a common misconception that, oh, it's got to go down into the, you know, into the river, or into, you know, because you're taking it from somewhere if you store it up here. And that's really not the case. When you promote that infiltration, you're recharging all these little pockets in the watershed, and you can actually make seasonal creeks become year-round ones by doing that on a large scale. And you can raise water tables. And this is a mind bender. I read this, the first time I saw this, I was like, huh? Wait a minute, what? And like a large dam, the example of that locally is Mount Shasta, you know, a lake, the big dam down there. That's an example of a large dam, large watershed. Water travels from a very far distances to get to this one single spot. And this is a study that was done by a couple of scientists that basically that said that, well, you actually yield a lot more water if you do the little this as opposed to this down to the, you know, like Shasta Lake thing. And the most interesting part about this is it becomes exponential in drought years. Because in drought years, you know, and you'll see it, the water when it falls, when it's really dry, it just soaks up, you know, in the shallow, you know, the very shallow parts of the soil. So you just lose it to evaporation in the soils, and it doesn't have a chance, you know, to get in there. So a lot of times these rains, they're misleading, you know. You think, wow, it's raining, it's great, but most of it's just gone, you know. But it is helping, there's no doubt. This is kind of the idealized vision of a homestead where you are harvesting the water on the ground, off of the roofs and buildings, and storing it, getting the water to infiltrate so that, you know, essentially you have very little runoff coming off of the site. This is a home in rural Australia. 80% of the homes in rural Australia are rainwater homes. That's their sole source of water. And a lot of these homes are nice, you know. They're, you know, single family, and they're living really comfortably. They're just more conscious, and they're more careful with their water. So those are a couple of tanks there, roof catchment systems that feed the whole house. This is San Juan Islands. This is a house, new home, and they plopped the tanks in there before they started erecting the deck. There, you know, that's underneath the deck right there. Back up. I saw this home when it was finished. Really nice, high-end home, and the people were just more conscious with their water use, but they were able to get through 9 months with that amount of storage. So, you know, they were really conscious and really smart and able to do it. This is actually in Ashland. This is a couple. Back up. What the heck was that? This is a couple in Ashland. Another nice, beautiful home, 27,000 gallons. They're only two people. They have some visitors, but they can go forever with the 27,000 gallons. Now, they don't use that water for very much irrigation, just little planters and pots and whatnot. But you know, it's just an example of what can be done. And this is, this is a colleague of mine. That's the M1A1 battle cistern. Just silly. How the hell did that get in there? And then also, this is just something I wanted to show about like dual function and what we can do. This is a planter box where, you know, it's kind of like, hey, let's make some storage because we got some space underneath this planter to store water. So there's just a little thing there that shows you the 2-inch diameter or 2-foot diameter pipe along one side of a building, 300 foot, will give you 7,000 gallons of storage. So, and I'll just show you the cross section of this thing. So we just utilize culvert pipe in the bottom of the planter bed to basically be the storage. You know, it's a little man-made cistern aquifer. And then we have an innovation irrigation concept above, which I'll show you later. So in talking about our homes outside the home, because what Meadow referred to as our, you know, outside the home is the predominant water usage. The idea with rainwater harvesting is to direct that water to areas where you need it, you know, instead of it, you know, if you go and walk your property after it rains, you'll see little drainage veins, you know, and typically they're going away from where you want it to go, like your plants and your trees. So this just goes to show you a thought process of doing plantings to where they maximize the runoff to best use for whatever you have planted. And then, you know, this is kind of like the urban, you know, example to show, you know, this isn't just for out in the woods, you know, big landscapes. This is also for urban developments where you can do a lot. And the idea is to not let that water escape, you know, keep it on site. And just new ideas in drainage, you know, cities, municipalities all over the place are changing their thought process to where instead of directing the water out onto the street, down, away, get it in to irrigate and also prevent that polluted runoff from going into our watersheds. This is a little pilot project in outside of Seattle where they, you know, nixed the curb sidewalk deal, and they went into, that's a giant swales on either side, no curbs, and the walkways are actually here. And so basically all the runoff goes in, irrigates these areas in front of the subdivisions. And the main reason they did this is because they had pollution problems. So they were able to solve their pollution problems by having the runoff go in here, get bioremediated by the sand profile in the plants, and they had clean runoff going into the watershed. And property values skyrocketed in this place, by the way. They weren't expecting that, but just another new ideas for making use of the water. I showed you, I'm going to be showing you roof catchment, and this is a surface catchment concept, very simple. This is kind of like the very simple swale and berm on contour, and you got the mulched berm right there, and you can see this is right after a rain, and you see how the water's being held by the berm here, and it's being allowed to infiltrate, and it's preventing erosion, and you see how the other one down below there. So this is just a real simple vision of something that can really help with the erosion problem. This is helping to recharge, get water down into the ground, into our little shallow, you know, tube wells, aquifer systems, and it just helps everything. It's like pumping it into the ground. I wanted to show you some commercial kind of applications. You know, this is a concrete cistern that they just did on every corner of the gym. This is in Arizona. So, you know, just a great use of, it does dual function again. It cools and heats the building because that water maintains a consistent, you know, 55-degree temperature all the time. So it's a passive heating and cooling mechanism, and then it provides water for the irrigation of the school. This is Seattle City Hall. They were building the foundation of the City Hall, and somebody said, hey, this is a giant cavernous foundation here. We could store water here. So they just incorporated 215,000 gallons of storage as part of the foundation of the City Hall. And they have green roofs and all sorts of things, so that water supplies the toilets and all the irrigation for the landscape. One of the things we wanted to talk about for our local community is gray water. There's a new gray water code that is allowing gray water systems to not be permitted for you to put in gray water systems off of washing machines and single fixture things in your house. So like a single sink, for example, or the washing machine. So this is like a groundbreaking thing that's happened. This is, the fact that it doesn't, they're saying, California, that it does not have to be permitted if you follow these stipulations and guidelines. I called, is it Rod? Yep. At the city, and I said, hey, what are you guys doing as far as gray water? And he said, to be honest, we haven't had anyone call. No one has been interested to this point. So we don't even have our own, guidelines or anything. So basically what he said was, now every city and municipality can adopt or amend or deny what California does. So it's like a case-by-case basis right now. So I think it'd be a good idea if we start a movement with the city to get more education, maybe do some pilot projects, and then to where we can get something that's acceptable with the city, and then it's easier to do. Because I know that I think there was one person that has called about a gray water system in Mount Shasta City, and Rod had to say, I have to deny it right now because there's just nothing, we don't have any, we don't know. So, but this is a great opportunity right now because that gray water, it's a constant source every day of the year. It's a lot of water too that it's going into the the sewer system and being treated as sewage when, doesn't need to be. This is just a little depiction of, hey Meadow, can you give me like a 2-minute? Yeah. Okay, cool. This is a little gray water, simple system. Basically, with gray water, you have like a surge tank, to harvest that first surge, and then you just want to slowly disperse the water into your landscaped area, subsurface, so that you don't have any pooling or anything like that. So it's a very simple thing to do. There can be some complications, or difficulties with, you have to separate the plumbing, so depending on what kind of access you have under the house and that sort of thing. But it is a very simple thing that can do at a very minimal cost, especially off of a washing machine or something like that. So. And those are the little distribution ports right there. And the gray water is going to feed those trees in that landscape. And then there's some other things that, this is a passive irrigation system that I've been working with for a little bit. And I hope to see this as maybe the new leach field of the future. Because you can incorporate black water into this. And it uses sand as the planting medium, so the little enzymes and microbes grow in the sand and bioremediate the black water, and you can plant anything in that sand profile. It's also a stormwater retention system, a distributed cistern irrigation system, all in one. And this just shows the side profile of it. It's a little involved to discuss how it works, but this is just something that's been going on. This is a 2.2 million gallon man-made aquifer with that irrigation system on top of it. So this was done in Cambria, where they were running out of water. So they actually send treated wastewater into this storage system to irrigate the athletic field. And then I just wanted to show, this is in Africa, hand-making tanks. And I just wanted to kind of show that if we do more of these and more of this, we will have less of less of these. We won't need as much of the big, large, centralized water infrastructure. And that's it.
Thank you, Dylan, for providing us with a lot of exciting ideas. Does everyone just want to go out and start constructing in your yards? Okay, so we're going to switch gears from the outside a little bit to the leak detection and repair with Sean Powell from the city. Oops. Whoa, I don't know what I just did there. Nope, we go all the way through. Otherwise, we would never get through all of our presentations. So, let's see. That's a pretty big squirt gun, I think. Okay, so Sean Powell is the Public Works Supervisor for the City of Mount Shasta, and he started his career in waterworks with the California State Parks on Angel Island. There he operated a small water system and assisted in collections and wastewater treatment. He then moved on to Montero Water and Sanitary District as a water systems operator before accepting the job in Mount Shasta. So he's going to share with us how to detect and repair leaks, and he's got some show and tell items. You want to put this one on? Just make sure that you hold it first.
And then I'll flip it in.
Okay, perfect.
Hopefully I don't break the microphone.
And then just
Hold on, let me get this thing away from here. Hi, again. Like I said earlier, I'm Sean, City of Mount Shasta, Public Works Supervisor. Sorry about that. I'll talk a little bit tonight about detecting and repairing leaks, and I do have a tendency to get on tangents, so you'll see me looking at Meadow to keep me on track. Pretty much I'm going to go over, these are the topics. What's the big deal of having a leak, especially before the meters started going in. There was not a whole lot of motivation to repair leaks that I've seen out through the system. We're going to go over that, the impacts of leaks, how to detect a leak in your home, and moving on to how to repair simple leaks. And then when the city steps in is a city responsibility versus homeowner responsibility. There is a fine line there that we need to kind of work together on. So the impacts of leaks. These are common water loss examples. We'll just run through these real quick. A leaking toilet, and these are not static numbers. These are varying depending on pressure, the size of the leak, the size of the pipe, all sorts of stuff. But just a leaking toilet can affect a 21,600 gallon per month loss. Drip irrigation at 1 gallon per minute left on can hit you at 43,200 gallons per month water loss. An unattended water hose, what I like to call a charge hose. Has anybody ever left their hose on accident outside their house? Ever before? Saw it a lot in the Bay Area. And then we get phone calls when that line split. The garden hose with the nozzle on it, sun damage or whatever, it splits. And that's a 5,400 gallon loss over the night if you do something like that. Broken service line for one night. If your line going to your house happens to crack, you lose a fitting, you're looking at 8,100 gallons that night. A stuck ice maker, pretty easy thing to find. You're gonna see water coming out of your freezer, but you're looking at an 86,400 gallon per month loss if that goes unattended. An inch and 1/16 of an inch rather, pinhole leak in your service line. What we call a pinhole, very small. You're going to lose 114,200 gallons, and that will show up in your front lawn as a damp spot. These leaks can sometimes be tricky. And a 1 inch hole, anything 1 inch and above, a half inch hole and above, what I refer to as a complete failure of your line, it's completely compromised, you're going to go through 1.8 million gallons per month of water loss. And especially now with the meters going in, this translates big time into dollars and cents. The worst leak I've ever seen when working in Montara was a vacation home where they left the water on. They didn't have the city come out and turn their water off before they left, and a 3/4 inch line underneath their house completely severed, and we never were able to see the leak because it was going down a fissure and into the ocean. They had an oceanfront house, and they went through 200,000 gallons in a month's time, and their water bill was $4,000. The district worked with them because that's obviously they weren't wasting; it was an accident. But there comes a point where you start looking at the dollars and cents of that stuff. So with the new meters going in, and I can't emphasize enough that rates have not been decided yet, and I know City Council hasn't gone there yet, but there will come a point where this will translate, leaks in your home will translate into dollars. So those are some common water loss examples. And what do leaks look like? Very easy inside the home. Subtle wet spots, puddling, discoloration. You're gonna see, I mean, who in here's had a leak in their house? Did it take you long to find it? Yeah, it's pretty obvious in your house that you got a leak. And odors are another thing. You can smell them after a while, especially with the kind of pressures we run in town. The harder ones are out in the yards. What does a leak sound like? You'll hear hissing, whooshing, rumbling, depending again on the pipe size and the pressure that you have in your line. The rumbling will be more of those city mains going haywire, but hissing and whooshing are definitely, a lot of folks are gonna be looking at their meters now. You'll have a leak detection on your meter, but you'll hear it if it's close. Whenever you have an exposed pipe and there's a sizable leak, you'll know just by listening to it. I don't hear or see anything. Can I still have a leak? Yes. Toilet leaks and irrigation leaks are especially sneaky. Toilet leaks, the flapper valves on those things, even if it's been more recently replaced, do have a tendency to leak. And the best way to detect those is the dye test. And what all that is before you go to bed at night, take a little food coloring, we had blue tablets we gave out at the last place I worked, but a little dye, and put it in the top part of your toilet, the fill tank. And just go to bed. You wake up the next morning and look in the bowl. If you see any of that color, you have a leak. And those, again, can be very sneaky leaks to detect. Irrigation leaks are the hardest leaks to detect. And the reason why is we run our irrigation systems at 3 in the morning. And when a sprinkler head's busted or a pipe has severed, you're really not going to know. And on a meter, on a water bill, those come up as excessive usage. They actually don't trigger a leak detection. These new meters are going to be great because we'll be able to, it'll tell us when a leak's happening. Irrigation leaks don't, because when they're not on, water's not running, so the meter doesn't know to detect a leak. The best way to keep tabs on your irrigation system, I highly advise once a week, turn on the stations, walk them, look at your sprinkler heads. Listen, if you see low flow out of one of your sprinkler heads and the rest are going full bore, you probably have a localized leak in there. If you turn on a station and all the sprinkler heads kind of pop up and start drizzling out, you have a major leak in your supply line. So I highly recommend once a week, go and energize each station one by one, pay attention, and get to know your irrigation system if you haven't already. The way it sounds, the way it looks when the water's flowing, and that'll be very indicative of whether you have an irrigation leak. But those two are the trickiest leaks to detect. Repairing leaks. There's all sorts of different pipe types. Any household plumbers we got in here do your own work? Anybody? What is the #1 reason that we don't want to fix a leak? Pain in the butt, and you don't want to call the plumber. They'll charge you right up the wazoo for doing any work. And this is where I got kind of my show and tell. You've got several different pipe types. Can you hear me okay with this, like this? What's that? Pull it up. There we go. Okay. Sorry, I'm tall. Several different pipe types. Copper, PEX, and I've got these based off their diameters, and these type of pipes fit together. So copper and PEX fit together. PEX is a newer style plastic pipe. It's very, very effective. It's great, but I'll go over that in a second. Steel, brass, and PVC. Schedule 40 plastic is the most common. It's white that you'll see. And the fitting types that these type of pipes, there is also CPVC, but I'm not going to get into that. Fitting types that these 5 pipe types take are thread fittings, solvent fittings, solder fittings, and compression or shark bite fittings. And I've got some examples here. This is that white pipe I'm talking about. You'll see this more often than not on your irrigation system. Schedule 40 plastic. This is the copper line that I like copper the best. It's sturdy, it's strong, it's very resistant to corrosion. It's good stuff. So is plastic. And this is PEX. The best thing about PEX is it likes to flex. You can bend it in all sorts of different ways. PVC is much more rigid. And then you've got brass, which is this guy right here, and then you got galvanized. A lot of homes have galvanized. Galvanized, it actually corrodes from the inside out. So if a lot of you folks have low flow in your home, I've gotten a lot of calls about pressure. I saw you shake your head. When you run chlorine residual through your system, it does corrode from the inside out, which we don't in this town. I can't wait. So the outside of this pipe in this town, I've noticed a lot in this town actually corrodes from the outside in. And a lot of that is due to the corrosive nature of the soil here and a lot of rocks and again, I can't wait. So I want to just go through a couple fittings here with you and just show you how you can transition these pipes. If you want to move from galvanized to brass, it's very simple. IPS, International Pipe Thread, National Pipe Thread, iron pipe size, whatever you want to call it. You can go, let me just throw it in there, brass to galvanized very easily. Same thread type. If you find yourself with wanting to go over to plastic, you have plastic fittings. This is called a female adapter. It's got pipe thread. You can just go right on to your galvanized fitting or your brass fitting or drop it. And let me get that on there. Okay, so that's on there. And then you can always just do a glue joint and transition to your plastic. Now, Meadow wanted me to do a glue joint. That would have gotten messy. I'm not going to do that. There is an ideal way to do it. Your household plumbers might do it a different way. But textbook, emery cloth, clean up your pipe, prime it, glue it, okay? When you insert into the socket, turn a quarter turn. It'll spread the glue better. Hold it for a few seconds. With the blue, there's several types of glue, and I'm going to get out in the weeds if I go into that. But the gray glue, it sits longer. The blue glue is the fast stuff. You got to move when you're using the blue stuff. It likes to go and kick. If you find yourself wanting to go plastic to copper, now I brought this. This is a slip joint here for a solder. Most folks in here probably don't want to go that route. It's the more advanced of the ways to fit pipes. You need your flux, you need your solder, you need a torch, you need all sorts of crazy stuff. But that just slides right on there. You fit it in there, you clean your pipe, you solder it, if you feel comfortable with it. Most folks, with the creation of the shark bite fitting, which is, man, it's awesome. This thing's awesome. So what I could do is if I wanted to make a transition from your iron pipe size to copper, I can thread that on. They make these snazzy little adapters, and then I just take this guy right here and terminate the fitting. That's a leak tight. That's a watertight fitting right there. It's awesome, and it also spins. So they're arguing that this joint is actually stronger than a solder joint. They're strong, and the best part about the shark bite is a little tool they give you because you said, oh man, I cut my pipe too short or too long. You just put this guy on there and pull it off. Awesome fittings. And if you decide you want to go PEX to copper, all right? Say you've got copper line in your house and you want to go to this great thing they call PEX, you can always slip this guy on there and it's the same outside diameter as PEX. So This stuff's really good. If you want to go with PEX in your home, blue is for cold, red is for hot. You can use the red for cold, obviously, but don't use blue for hot. I've seen this stuff under freezing conditions actually balloon up. And it doesn't bust, but I wouldn't go too haywire on that. Insulate your pipes. Okay, so, oh, and also and for transition points where you're kind of having a hard time, they do make these guys. I use them a lot out in the water system. They make plastic. I only brought a plastic one. They make galvanized and brass ones too for fitting copper to. There's all sorts of fittings out there, and this is just a small sampling of what you can do. And the cool thing about the compression is you fit this little. I'm not going to do it now because these gaskets can be a real pain to get on sometimes. But if you have two pipes that are kind of doing one of those things, and you ever gotten to that point where, well, now what do? I got my pipe, but I can only thread this way, and if I tighten this way, I loosen that way. Well, that's why these are there. You got a gasket on both sides. And you tighten her up, and you got to make sure it's nice and tight, or it'll slip off, and then you have a watertight seal for compression. And they make, again, compression for all sorts of, all these pipe sizes take a compression fitting. But yeah, it's good stuff. So that's just kind of a heads up for repairing leaks. When is it time to call the plumber? If you find yourself in this situation, it's time to call the plumber. No, this guy's a professional water operator. He's doing something crazy. I found this on the internet. He's obviously set up for the photo op because I've been there. This is going to get messy. Here's my phone. Take a picture of this. It's going on Facebook when I'm done. No, but really for the plumbers, they can be very advantageous, especially when dealing with pressure issues and installing different, not just a leak, but installing greater things like valving and pressure regulators and stuff like that in your home. So what I say when is it time to call the plumber? When you've reached your comfort zone and you're starting to get into a point where you don't feel comfortable anymore, I'd call a plumber. It's all based on your skill and your comfort level. That's really it. Yeah. So repairing scenarios. Repairing leaks, a leaking valve fitting or a complete pipe failure. If your pipe is cracked, if you've got a leaking valve that's dripping on your floor, unless you've got a valve downstream, that's more than likely the time to call the city. Will come turn your water off so you can get that valve replaced. You can repair valves in place. It's just tough. And if you haven't done it before, you can get really wet really fast and then call the city anyway to come turn your water off because it went sideways. But generally when you have a leaking valve or fitting or a complete pipe failure, you will need to shut the water off. Pinhole leaks, they do make clamps. If you're in a situation where you don't want to call the city or for whatever reason you've got something like that happening in your front yard, I haven't seen any of the Ready clamps here in Shasta. We order them from Ferguson Waterworks down in Redding for what we're doing. J.W. Wood also is a great supplier for those kind of clamps. They're down there in Redding as well. That's going to get more on you're now flirting with the industrial side of waterworks. The simplest thing to do would probably be cut your water off, and you'll generally see clamps be put on when you've sat there and dug for an hour, and you finally got to the leak, and it's spraying all over the place, and you have to dig out this much so you can do a proper drop in. That's generally where clamps come in, and they're very, very helpful. But again, that's for those pinholes. Prevention when installing the pipe. Wrap your pipe for insulation. Also, if you happen to wind up in concrete or anything like that, you need to wrap your pipe in 10 mil tape or some sort of an insulating tape because it will prevent corrosion. Concrete likes to eat things up. Insulate your pipes. Install a pressure regulator on your house. This is huge for water conservation as well as maintaining the lifespan of your pipes in your home. And allow yourself easy access. I took this picture out of my own home because I had to cut all that brick out to get to a leaking sewer line. And those water lines that are galvanized are actually poured in cinders. I had to cut it all out it was the worst. It was really bad. So once you get to that point, make an access door. Don't pour concrete over your pipes if you can avoid it. It's just not what you want to do. Main breaks. We're getting into the city realm. That is a main break, and that is a main break. They're both main breaks. They look very different. You'll know when that happens. Those are much more subtle. So if you see things like this out in the field, sorry, I say the field, out in the city, call us, please. Alma Street's a spring. I was actually out there with American Leak Detection at 4:30 in the morning. We did pressure tests. We did sounding. Alma Street's a spring. Yes, but that's a brand new main now. Okay. Awesome. So you know it shouldn't leak. And we would call back the contractor if it was a leak. We had Timberworks on speed dial and we were expecting it to come back, and it was actually, it's groundwater. And yeah, it's amazing. I'm surprised too, because I was ready to get all over them about that. So yeah, they can be subtle, but if you see them, please call us and we'll investigate. This town does have a lot of groundwater, and it's difficult to tell, especially since this town doesn't run chlorine through their system. A thing that was very common down south, I could just take a vial and do a chlorine test, and if it came back pink, it's our water, start digging. If it came back clear, not our water, it's a spring. We don't have that luxury here, so it can be hard to chase springs. From a water operator standpoint, it was turning off the water. We're again in city responsibility. I'm almost wrapped up, Meadow. She's doing this thing to me. I highly encourage everybody to have a separate house valve aside from the city shutoff. Very important, because I cannot emphasize this enough. I highly discourage operating the city curb stop. They're old. A lot of them are very old. They will leak. They will break. It's just fragile. If you break it, you buy it. If I've got to send an operator out to get to the main, cut the water off, cut in a new valve, and I'm paying him time and materials, you will get a bill. If we break it, hey, we broke it. Oops, we'll fix it. You know, and that's perfectly fine. They probably needed to be replaced anyway. There's that aspect of it, and then there's also the regulatory aspect of it. As a distribution operator, certain regulations start kicking in. And when you start operating appurtenances on a public water system, 99% of the time it's going to be perfectly fine, but that 1% of the time where a backflow incident's happening and you happen to break something and something gets siphoned in, that's a bummer. So we've got trained personnel that can handle those valves and stuff like that. But that's just my little commercial. I'm pretty sure most of you are still going to shut off your valves there. Unaddressed leaks. Our distribution system is first and foremost for fire flows. Back when distribution systems were created, that's why they were created. Only after that did we start tapping in and giving people drinking water. If we see a leak go unattended, and somebody had a question about, well, the neighbor sprinkler, you told me I was going to cover it in my presentation, if a neighbor sprinkler. If you see a neighbor sprinkler leaking, call City Hall. We'll get to it. If we see a leak go unattended, especially after making contact, after taking the appropriate steps in the resolution, we will eventually turn the water off. And it's just part of the water conservation. And when a leak happens in the distribution system during busy times, the Public Works Department is working at a pace that it hasn't seen in years. We are making vast improvements to the water system, collection system. We are running full bore right now. So if we get a call for a leak and it goes a week, like we had one on the down part of near the Forest Service, we just got that one. It took us a couple days to get to it. So after we were notified of it. And then I found out that it had been leaking for 2 weeks before we were notified of it. So if you see a spring, Alma Street, I'm putting it out there, that's a spring, but if you even have an inkling it might be a leak, call us. We'll come look at it, and we'll assess it, and we'll put a timeline on it. And that's pretty much it. If you have any comments or questions, I'm very accessible. That's my email right there. If you ever have any questions for me, I try to be as responsive as possible. Sometimes we get slammed and we're not, but that's it.
Thank you so much. That is a lot of information that hopefully all of the household plumbers and new plumbers are going to be able to utilize for checking for leaks. And our next presenter is Jay Carez, and he is I'm going to have this as his backdrop. It's actually my garden with all of his starts, which are quite delicious right now. So let me introduce Jay. And Jay, would you like to stand and use this one versus the one over your head? Okay. So, I live in Dunsmuir. Okay, so Jay Perez is a horticulturalist, farmer, educator, and environmentalist. He has taken college courses in horticulture and culinary arts. His passion for farming led him to volunteer on farms in Santa Cruz, Thailand, India, Maui, and the Big Island of Hawaii. These experiences helped solidify the desire to engage in agriculture and the communities that work with the land. He moved to Mount Shasta in 2005 with his wife Cynthia, and here he started his agricultural career. Launching a greenhouse company, Healthy Gardens, with his wife Cynthia, while also being a landscape contractor, being part of a large ranch startup called Bel Campo, and now delving into property management and local sustenance projects. His passion is creating good food and on the way trying to increase the overall health of the environment around us. So, welcome, Jay.
All right. Well, thank you, Meadow. So, it's a packed house. It's really inspiring to see so many folks here concerned and caring. And okay. And showing up for this, because these are serious times. So, I will be talking mainly about efficient. Is there any way? I don't need this. Let me move this. Mainly about soil health and efficient irrigation. So basically the question is, how can we achieve fertile land with minimal water? So if we have X amount of water falling on our given soil, how can we retain that water? Whether you have garden beds or whether you work on a very large ranch, basically the topic is the same. How do we increase our water holding capacity in our soils so that we have less runoff? And so some of the main ways that we can address these issues is, in a nutshell, organic matter incorporated into the soil. This is achieved through multiple ways: proper animal grazing if you have animals, cover cropping, getting that carbon back into the earth, application of compost, and good compost, not stuff that looks like it has a bulk matter to it. It should look not like coffee grounds, but more towards that direction. If it's not, then you're getting more of like a mulch-based product that still has a while to go to break down before the nutrients can be released for your plants. So one of the main ways, if you only have so much water, again, is we have to look at our soils and what it is that we're doing to our soils, and are we moving in the right direction to where we can create our soils to be a sponge that can soak up every last drop that we have, that we spent all this work, with Dylan and everyone else to retain this water, right? So now how do we, when we apply it, do we get the most benefit out of the work that you did before by capturing the water in the first place? It also helps, of course, the rainwater that you get, if it does fall in soil that you've incorporated and you have good dirt, then you won't have to use your rainwater for irrigating as well, because you now maybe have 10-15% more water in your soil than you did before. So another issue when it comes to soil fertility would just be also the application of certain things when we're in heavy cultivation, like in our gardens, or even in our ranches, would be minerals. Calcium, magnesium, potassium, iron, and zinc, some of your small micronutrients. These are things that we also want to focus on as far as like our own personal health, because we're eating these plants, and as we increase our cultivation and how much we're pulling out of each square footage, we are exceeding most of the time the capacity of what the soil had in the first place to give. And so we need to be putting back more into the soil than currently I believe we are, than what we're doing. So one of the big things that I deal with is drip irrigation. It's huge. And over the past years, it's gotten so much better. It used to be where you'd have to just get a big piece of tubing and poke some holes and get your emitters, and it was tedious and on the verge of insane, really. And So now they've come up with an irrigation product that I'm in love with. It's called T-Tape, and it's a flat tape system. It's super cheap, and I have some here, and I'll show you guys how to work with, who to get it from, and it's kind of revolutionized, I think, a lot of the way that the farming industry has gone, just due to the fact of how much water you can save. The downfall is that, of course, we're using plastic, right? And I'm not sure how to get around some of that larger issues. But when it comes to T-Tape, it's fantastic because it's pressure reduced. So you know exactly how much you're getting every 100 feet. You can get it in any length you want as far as spacing of the drip. It's pre-perforated drip. So you just lay your tape out, 4-inch on center, 8-inch on center, however big you want, and then you basically just fire it up, and you know it starts out small, and then once it pressurizes, it starts doing its drip, but it's not out of control. It's exactly in line. You know exactly how much you're using. So anyone that's on a minimal water system can pre-calculate all of their water needs for their garden that they're going to use through the T-Tape system. It's super fantastic, and it's definitely the way to go as compared to overhead watering, or and now that we can't water, you know, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. You know, and later on in the year, you know, that can also cause more stress on plants as you start getting mildew issues. Powdery mildew creeps up at us in the fall time, and it's just shown that you get around 15 to 20% more harvest from a drip irrigation system than you would get from an overhead system. So what you pay for up front, yes, it's more expensive, but a T-Tape system will last you for years and years and years. And the only part that you'd have to replace is the tape. But to give you an idea how cheap it is, it's $200, about $240 for 7,200 square feet or linear feet. So it's pennies, pennies, and again, it's so worth. I will show you here in a second. Okay, actually, maybe I'll show you the T-Tape right now, so I don't get off topic. Okay. So this is basically T-Tape, and you can see here where it's perfect. I don't know if you guys can see. There's little white dots right here from calcification, which we all have from here. Anyway, so it's 8-inch on center, and something like this, really easy to use, flexible, but at the same time, not super flexible. You have to go more or less in a straight line. But when we're talking about also irrigation efficiency, and especially in the garden, most people don't have circular beds, right? We have straight beds. Well, a lot of folks will have a soaker hose that will run in a circle, but just like a pivot, you'll always lose the corners, okay? And the corners can be some of your most productive areas because you can plant things in there that can crawl out, right? So you're losing some of your most fertile ground actually by not using this. So, yeah, exactly. So these fittings are barbed fittings with a clamp on them, basically. Super easy to use. You basically take your pipe, install it into here. Make sure it's all the way down. Come on. Do a little twist. Do a little twist. Once you see it's pretty much engaged over the barb, you clamp it down, and it holds. Now, remember, it doesn't, I'm not pulling super hard, but again, it's 10 PSI. The whole system is capped at a pressure, so you don't have to worry about having these on like gorilla tight. You know, I mean, anyone should be able, most folks should be able to clamp these on and off, and they're great because then you can run another T and a 90 or whatever else, and you have your whole bed covered corner to corner all the way through. You've chosen what emitter spacing that you're going to use, so you have full and complete saturation of your bed and where you want to apply water. And it can even convert. You can convert this straight to half-inch poly tubing as well. So if you wanted to run a little emitter because you have some roses or rhododendron or something out, you just connect this to a little line and and then you can irrigate whatever else. So it's very, very, very flexible, and gives the home gardener a lot of options as far as where they can place their water and in an efficient manner. And now granted, there's a limit on this, but it's about 380 feet. So I don't know if too many folks are planning on running lines at 380 feet, but you know, if you are, you might want to get a different kind of T-tape. But so basically though, the system is so easy. Typical timer. This is a very old one. I think it's from like circa 1984. But I just wanted to give you an idea of how simple this can be. So, it's on the surface, but it's made so that you can bury it. Conventionally, farmers have this machine that they'll pull, and the T-tape will get buried underground, and then they have that same exact machine they can go back and pull that T-tape out. The only problem is when you bury it under the ground, it has a limited lifetime. When a home gardener doesn't bury it, just lays it on top of the soil, you can use this for about 4 to 5 years. And you might get a leak here or there, but they sell these pieces just like this, but it would be a coupler. So you would just find it, cut it, put it together, done. You walk away. It's really simple. And these leaks are very obvious. It wouldn't seem like it right at 10 PSI. You'd think, well, it just dribbles out, but it doesn't, because it's just, and most of the time it's obvious, unless, of course, ground squirrels have been known to be more vigorous than they should. So basically, this piece right here will screw straight on to any 3/4 inch hose bib, basically. Anyone. There's nothing fancy about it. What's fancy about it is just the end part that you can screw this onto. So basically, you would just take this, put it on the end of your hose bib. You would have a pressure reducer and a filter before this. I didn't have a filter on me, but I have a pressure reducer. You've probably seen many of these, black and white. They make other ones that are a little bit more unrecognizable, but these are the ones I go with. You would put this baby up here, put your filter up here, and off you go. You basically connect your tubing down to this, fire it up to your garden, and you basically have an amazing working system. Now, the company that I've been working with is DripWorks out of Willits, California. They're fantastic. I highly recommend those guys as far as information, troubleshooting, and they're just a wealth of knowledge. So some things I wanted to mention as these guys were talking. Yeah. What, yeah, sure. It's called T-tape. Willits. Yeah, it's called DripWorks. Oh, sorry. And they're in Willits, California. One thing, because I was a landscape contractor for a few years, the majority of leaks that I found usually occur from well, not majority, but a big problem is the valve system. Okay. The valves around here can get grit, they can get all kinds of stuff stuck in them, and then as we were shown, how much water one can lose. One of the most important pieces that anyone in this room will ever install, but any of their valves, if they ever have to replace, is a union. This union, so again, getting back to the ease of things, if it's easy to replace something, we'll do it, right? If it's hard, we'll procrastinate, maybe. I'm not talking, not you guys, but me. I'll procrastinate, and then I'll eventually, him and haw, but probably after I've lost a few hundred gallons of water. So, this union piece, put in front of any valve, allows you to basically, if there's a broken valve, you just unscrew this, and I'll put this down real fast. So this piece unscrews. Sorry, I'm putting dust over here. So, just like this, okay? So there's a gasket on this side here, and just goes straight into here, and you clamp it back on. So it gives you access to take apart your entire valve manifold, super easy. And I can't tell you how many thousands of dollars contractors have made off of folks not installing a $6 piece by their valve. And each one gets this. So $6 for each valve, and you will save yourself time and headache because nothing lasts forever. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about was lawns, right? We all have lawns. And so one of the big issues with lawns is runoff. Huge. And so one of the best ways that we can mitigate this is to pulse our irrigation. We want to break the surface tension. So what you want to do is you want to fire your irrigation system on for a few minutes just to break the surface soil. And then you want to come back with your heavy irrigation. Because what happens is if you just fire all your heavy irrigation right away, you're not breaking the surface tension, and you're not creating a draw into the soil. And so it'll pull, right? Water wants to pull. So when it starts running, it's actually sucking all the other, it's sucking all the water out. So if you can get water on your lawn first in a short period of time, and then have your cycle come on again, but for the duration that you want, whatever that is, you'll find that you'll have a lot less runoff off any sort of a given wide space. And this isn't just lawn. This is anyone that's irrigating large areas with an overhead spray. Super helpful. Golf courses do it. It's definitely a practice that we all could be using for better penetration of our water. And last but not least would be the adjustment of sprinklers, okay? So basically, I'll just run this by you guys real quick. It's super simple. Oftentimes, we have too much arc in our sprinklers. If there's runoff, they're firing too far. And most of these bad boys, you can take a small little flathead screwdriver, stick it right here into the top. Now these are rotary sprinklers, the kinds that go left, right, not the pop-ups. So to adjust these guys, you basically put a screwdriver in here, and you can adjust how much water is coming up or down, and left or right's a given. But really, I feel like the most important element here is the arc, because that's really what usually causes overwatering or which leads to a waste of water. These guys right here are pop-ups. They're great. They're adjustable. So these little guys right here come with these heads. I firmly suggest a 360-degree adjustable head because you never know what you're going to need or if you're going to have to move your head. So make it adjustable. Give yourself the options of mobility. So basically, that's just about it, more or less, on this list.
I think now everyone really wants to go down to the hardware store and start playing with all of these tools. Oh, and I should just say that we planted our garden, in half an hour after putting our baby to bed in the dark. It doesn't look like what Jay or probably Julie are going to recommend, so just sorry about that. We didn't get the presentations before we planted. It's yummy. Okay, so let me introduce Julie. I seem to have lost my introduction papers. So Leslie and Julie, I'm going to make these things up from having read it before. Julie has been, Cynthia, beautiful. We were going to have to test my memory, but now I have my papers back. Okay, so Julie Jokey has been instructing university students for over 20 years, and she has a master's degree and a passion for permaculture. She works to share her knowledge about growing, harvesting, and preserving healthy food and encourages everyone to have at least a small vegetable garden. She is a certified master gardener and a member of the Wairika Community Gardens. So now we're going to move into our food production and growing food in a dry climate. Thank you, Julie.
Cool. I haven't gotten. Can you hear me? Okay. Help. It's the wrong view.
I didn't do the presenter view. Sorry about that. Aha. And then just advance here.
That one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then just make sure to
I'll keep this one. Okay, then I don't need this. If I have that. And I'll put this over here. I'm tripping on your tape. I think it's booby trap now. Well, I don't need this either, right? I'm putting this back here. Okay, here we go. My name's Julie. Yeah. Now you got it. There you go. My name's Julie, and I am here to talk about growing food in a dry climate. These are the main points I want to cover this evening. I'm going to talk about planning, preparing, choosing, watering, training, variations, and alternatives. Commercial production of food requires a lot of water. This chart shows just how much. Look at your walnuts. 5 to 9 gallons of water for one walnut. Yeah, 5 gallons of water for one head of broccoli. That's commercial production. Okay. However, you can grow enough food for your family without this heavy water usage. Individuals can use small, efficient models of food production that are not available to huge corporate farming enterprises. And in addition to the enormous drain on the water supply, the average food item on a U.S. grocery shelf has traveled farther than most families go on their annual vacations. If you want to save resources, grow your own food. It's really simple. Okay, let's start with the basics. Location. Locate your garden close to your water supply. Whether you water from a hose or from a catchment, you don't want to have to transport water for long distances. It's really heavy. And your bed should be no more than 4 feet across. Minimum height is 6 inches. Ideally, the bed should be oriented east to west. And your vegetables need 10 to 12 hours of sunlight per day. And God said, grow your own food. This was my favorite garden ever. I love this garden and I really miss it. But it's a raised bed. It's a cinder block garden. It was really easy to build, actually. And I like it because I had to have back surgery several years ago, and so it's hard for me to garden, you know, in the ground. So I have it a little raised, and it makes it much easier. Just remember that you don't want your beds more than 4 feet across. It's really important because otherwise you can't reach the middle, and all that food will go to waste. Soil bed preparation. You want to build the organic matter percentage of your soil. Isn't that beautiful? It really is close to looking like coffee grounds. When you said that, I thought that was pretty funny, Jake. Just that yummy, smelly, rich soil and some manure. Get some manure in there. And I think at least 20% organic material. That's what I go for. 30 is better. Okay, I know I'm a little high there. And once your soil heats to a certain temperature, make sure you mulch the top of it to hold the soil, to hold the moisture in, excuse me. Let's talk about choosing what to grow. The first thing I would do is check with your neighbors. See what they're growing, see what works for them. They are your best resource. Ask a gardener. Gardeners love to tell you what to do. Okay, they do. And here's a list of some drought-tolerant foods. And you don't have to copy them all down because, like Meadow said, she's going to have this whole thing for you later. I did want you to notice that apple tomatoes are on there. Those are my faves. And I do have to warn you a little bit about Jerusalem artichokes. Have you ever grown Jerusalem artichokes? I consider them an invasive species. I don't recommend them. So I just thought I'd throw that in there. All right, here's some vegetables that need consideration. These are called brassicas. If you're from the south, they're called coal plants. Yeah? Does that sound familiar? They take more water, and they like cooler climate. So they aren't going to do really, really well in July and August because it's really hot. So, but nothing's absolute. And if you have the right microclimate, you can still grow these vegetables even in the middle of summer. However, it's best to vary your planting according to the weather conditions and the availability of water. So I would consider growing these early in the spring or late in the summer, early fall. You don't really want them producing right in July and August. That's right when it's really hot and you probably have run out of water by then. All right? Planting and watering considerations. Here's some things to think about when you're planting your garden. Group your vegetables with similar watering needs together, like broccoli and kale. Okay? Plant in clusters, not in rows. Sorry about that. But look at nature. Nature doesn't plant in rows. And nature does the best with resources, way better than we do. Okay? And you don't see trees out there in rows, right? You don't go in a forest and see it in rows. It's planted in clusters. And things are used to shade other plants. And if you just think about it, and it makes sense to me, I plant my plants close together. I don't have very much water. I don't have a lot of resources. So I plant everything really close together. And it's always been very successful. And think about how one plant can offer shade for another. For example, tomatoes and basil. Not only will tomatoes keep the aphids away, they will also offer shade to less sun-tolerant plants like basil. Okay, so I plant my basil, yes, so it's going to be shaded by my tomatoes when it gets really hot in the middle of summer. And that keeps my basil from getting sunburned. So it's just about planning a little bit and thinking about where's this plant going to go? What's it going to look like a month from now? Where's the sun going to move? Okay, because you know after the 22nd of June, it's going to start going back on its little journey. So if you just think about things and think about conserving water, how can I save water? Most people overwater their gardens. The goal is to give your plants as much water as they need, not as much water as they want. Okay? It's kind of like children. Train them. Each inch of water applied to the surface penetrates 6 inches. The trick is to water deeply and seldom. Okay? If you water, failure. If you water lightly and often, you force your roots to the surface, and that makes them really susceptible to drought conditions. The goal is to get your roots deep, deep. And here, look at this chart. This shows the potential for really deep roots. The beets win 10 feet. How cool is that? I think it's really cool. And these are drought hardy, because the roots are so deep, okay? They can survive if you don't have any water. You know that you can grow tomatoes without water? Did you know that? Okay, we'll go there later. Okay, one way to, roots will always seek the water source, all right? If you're watering on top just a little bit, your roots are gonna come up. One way to increase your root depth and lessen water usage is with this little invention I have. It's called a drought stick. See where the holes are? Okay, I'm going to bury this. I'm going to bury this next to my plant up to about here. Okay, I'm going to make those roots go down for their water. And I'm going to use this with my tomato plants, and I'm going to use it with my Brussels sprouts, because I grow Brussels sprouts in the middle of summer because I just can't help myself, because I love them. Even though I just said you weren't supposed to. Okay. All right, let's talk about watering routine variations. The number of hours of light per day, along with the angle of the sun, has a profound effect on how much water plants require. Even though it's very hot in August and it seems like you would need more water for the garden, you actually need less. Up to half as much water in August as you needed in mid-June, where the days were the longest. I know it's hotter, but you need less water. So on your calendars, you mark in August, on August 15th, make sure I'm watering my garden less, okay, because it needs less water. I wanted to talk about alternatives to regular gardens. This is a straw bale garden. It's not a very good picture, is it? These are awesome. They're self-contained, they're simple, they're very efficient with their water usage. One of the best things about this type of garden design is you can place straw bales anywhere that you have adequate light. You can put it in the driveway, depending on who you live next to. In a gravel bed off your deck in the backyard, you don't need special soil. You just need 10 hours of light per day and some access to water. These are really popular right now in drought areas. This is how you plant. So this is an example of one way to plant them. The top layer is a mixture of compost, soil, and aged manure, and it's just needed to create the rooting environment. Okay, however, the bale itself is the growing medium for the garden. And when you're done with it, sometimes it'll last 2 years. And what do you have left? A beautiful pile of soil. It's just awesome. Here's another. The next alternative, keyhole garden. This is the bomb. It's brilliantly simple. It's a circular raised bed with a center compost basket. I knew I wanted to use this. That's the center compost basket. Have you ever seen these? By the way, I just wanted to mention there's one of these, a demonstration model at the Wairika Community Garden, which is open Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturdays, so you can go in and see it. It's really cool. Okay, well, no questions. Okay, a small... I remember. I learn well, don't I? A small pie-sized section of the bed is used for easy access to the center compost basket, which forms the keyhole design. The gardens require a small area. From A to A is 6.5 feet. Okay, that's it. Boom. Originally made popular in Africa, these keyhole gardens are amazing. They use less water than conventional gardens. They are drought tolerant. The center compost basket provides a receptacle for kitchen and garden waste. You are using your garbage to feed your food. I love this. Okay, and then it also provides the center basket. It also provides a vehicle for using gray water in your garden. Also, did I mention that you can use gray water in the drought sticks too? Yeah, so it's cool. Nobody knows when you're using that, so you can do it on your alternate day. Okay. The short bed distance from the outer wall to the center basket makes it easy. Recycled material use makes it free. You can build one of these for free. There are so many rocks in this county, it's unbelievable. Okay, a little this and that. I'm almost done. Make a list of what you actually like to eat and grow that. Okay? Don't be excessive unless you plan to can or dry the extra. You probably only need 2 indeterminate tomato plants. Think about what you'll actually use. Really, literally, sit down with your family and make a list. We like this. We like carrots. Okay, we'll grow those. Grow what you're going to eat. Use nasturtiums and borage in the garden, because they'll provide extra food for the pollinators and keep them around. And they also work with some pests that you don't want, but that's a long story and we won't go into it. Remember that your soil's alive. You want to feed it organic matter. The worms are your friends. They aerate the soil and they fertilize it. Worms also move the good stuff from the top of the soil to the root zone. They'll do most of your work for you. It's really cool. You can just throw some fertilizer on there. It'll take it down to the roots. The worms will. Wasps are awesome. Don't ever kill another wasp because they eat cabbage worms. Yes, they do. Okay, all of these principles and designs I've discussed are practices within the realm of permaculture. You've probably heard the term before. Unfortunately, it's easy to get overly excited and become so overwhelmed by trying to convert completely to a permaculture design that many people start, but then they basically give up. But you can start small. I've shown you some ways that you can just, one step at a time. All of the things I've talked about are ways that you can start introducing permaculture into your gardening. All right? And it's important. We are running out of resources. We're not just running out of water. Of course, I'm pretty sure we all know that. I like to think of permaculture as a process, not an event. And over time, we can adopt more sustainability efforts into the way we live, and it'll just give us different ways to be creative and address things like drought. So thank you. Not too long, huh?
Perfect.
I got to use that.
I think Dylan's voting for Brussels sprouts up here. Okay, so thank you, Julie, for providing us with the inspiration of food and growing our food and how that will actually use less water if we're looking at the bigger state picture. And we're going to conclude our presentations with some inspiration for making a beautiful landscape in your home while not necessarily needing to use any water at all or very little water. We do all have lawns, but here is a radical idea that maybe we don't need to always have lawns. I'm going to introduce Leslie Tift, and she's a local resident with a bachelor's degree in wildlife biology, and she's taught for over 20 years in the school systems, adult education and natural resources, forestry, outdoor recreation management, and the K through 12 multiple subjects with emphasis on biology and life science. So you can tell that she likes the outdoors and plants. And she taught for over 20 years at the Siskiyou Union High School District. Lots and lots of community involvement that has to do with native plants restoration and using native plants at Panther Meadow, Siskiyou Lakes Trail, Sisson Meadow, the Nepenthe Trail during the Cantera spill, Sierra Club Trail maintenance and salmon surveys. She has experience with native plants all over the place in our county and has been teaching on this for 20 years and the importance of native plant reintroduction. She didn't want me to call her an expert, so I said, could I call you a native plant specialist? I think 20 years experience is definitely a lot. So welcome, Leslie, and thank you.
I'm going to be a little different. I'm going to try the headphones. Or not headphones. Handless mic.
I've never used one, so now's my chance. All right. Let's see how this works.
Hey, wow. Now this is really cool. Okay. Is that too loud? It sounds loud. Okay. I'll talk really softly. Is that good? Yeah. I first want to say what a display of information we had tonight. It's awesome. And I want to thank Meadow. I want to thank presenters. I want to thank all of you for coming. I have always envisioned a garden that had minimal maintenance and water requirements, but most importantly, a landscape that reflects the wilderness areas that I cherish and love to hike and explore. For the past 20 years, I've been collecting and propagating native seeds and cuttings in this area. For you, I've put together a presentation of my yard that has over 60 native species and requires very little maintenance and water to sustain it. My hope is that this presentation will give you ideas with your future yard developments. And I know here it is. First of all, what is a native plant? You can see here it's something that hasn't been introduced. It's lived here for thousands of years. It's evolved with other species, and it has specific adaptations. Why are native plants important? First of all, if you look at this diagram, you'll see that native plants have a very extensive root system. They're deep, and they also go out laterally. Invasives generally have a single root that goes down very deep, draining the soil of moisture, and they don't have much of a lateral root system. Native plants' extensive root systems, especially in native bunch grasses, have been known to grow over a mile long. These root systems improve soil health by adding nutrients, aeration, and providing erosion control. The other piece about natives of why they're important is they attract pollinators, and I'm going to talk about that in a little more detail. And same with wildlife attractant. They also increase biodiversity. They increase the diversity above ground as well as below ground. And we're learning as time goes on that the below ground ecology is just as important as what's above ground. And of course, they're vital to the food web. Pollinators. I want to emphasize this because if it wasn't for pollinators, we wouldn't have food. Honeybees, among other pollinators such as bumblebees, bees, as you notice here, there's over 1,000 different species just in California alone. Butterflies, beetles, and a variety of other insects are responsible in one way or another for the pollination of our food crops. I just want to take a moment to talk a little bit about the difference between bumblebees and honeybees. Because many of us, well, I've come across for years thinking, oh, that's just a honeybee. Oh, there's just another honeybee. But no, honeybees were introduced. And the bumblebee is native. Because of this, bumblebees, due to coevolution, are much more efficient pollinators than honeybees. But the honeybee is more efficient at producing honey. There are over 30 different types of bumblebees in the western U.S. Native plants attract bumblebees. Unfortunately, bumblebees are declining due to the loss of native plant populations and herbicides. Some are already extinct. There's also a large variety of other pollinators, such as butterflies, moths, beetles, ants, flies, wasps, birds, bats, many more that are dependent on native plant life. Without these plants, some species would suffer. A great example is the monarch butterfly and its dependence on milkweeds. Also, native pollinators are predatory. That is, they'll eat insects that are harmful to your gardens. So in this case, the insects are a natural biological control for farmers. So in the big picture, if we benefit by keeping our native pollinator population healthy by planting native plants. Why use natives for landscaping? Well, low cost. There's no fertilizers. There's minimal irrigation or none at all. And there's no herbicides. There's low maintenance, none to minimal weeding and pruning. Plus some of the things that I've already mentioned, like the increase in diversity and soil health. As a wildlife attractant and also wildlife resistant. There's no more complete disappearance of your flowers. Yes, deer and rabbit, gophers, and the good old beachy ground squirrels will come and eat some of your natives, but they don't kill them. Matter of fact, some of them thrive on being pruned. Some natives are completely repulsive to these critters, so there are native plants that none of them will even touch. And of course, there's the aesthetic appeal. Oh boy, grass. I get this question a lot. How do I remove my lawn? Lawn removal, well, I have to admit, I'm not an expert on it because I don't plant lawns. I never have. But I know there's a variety of ways to get rid of your lawn. But the most important one is don't ever let it see the sun again. Because once you remove it, it's going to want to come back. So you want to keep pulling it out. Don't use herbicides, because that will ruin your soil health. Removing natives. Well, this is done a lot. You guys are used to seeing this thick wad of chinkapin, and there's probably tobacco bush and manzanita in there and different bitter cherry. But the best way, I find, is mosaicing it and removing it by hand and chipping or burning the brush. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later and why that is the best way. But again, I want to mention that native shrubs are extremely important for wildlife, providing food, shelter, and nesting material. I'm going to go back to the grasses. Now, I just want to I said invasive grasses, that's this, not that. That's a native bunch grass. Again, the best way to keep your grasses out is non-native grasses is to completely remove them and continue to. You'll see here this invasive grass is eventually going to take over this area and drown out this native here, which I think is a woolly sunflower. Now, if this area was kept clean and you planted bunch grasses and natives and kept pulling out those non-native grasses, eventually this area would take care of itself. A bunch grass is easy to identify, not the species individually, but just look for a grass that grows in a bunch. And it doesn't spread like an invasive grass. So I'm going to show you this slide here, and you can read this. This is why you should plant native bunch grasses. And here's a list here. I'm going to let you read that while I get a sip of water. I didn't put on there that native bunch grasses are absolutely beautiful. It's also considered one of the most endangered species in California. Okay, we're going to get into ideas for landscaping. I'm going to show you my yard. One idea for not having grass is to hardscape. And by that I mean you can use raised rock flower beds. You can, with which you will see, this is being planned for a rock patio. You can also put in rock pathways and dry creek beds, large and small, pavers and stained concrete. This is the finished product. This is our rock patio. This section hadn't been done yet, but it is done now. And I'm starting to plant natives in these raised beds. This is the dry creek bed. And I also have planted natives around here that soften the edges and make it look more natural. Planting. How do you incorporate natives in your landscape? First of all, you want to consider the soil type. Is the soil dry and porous, or is it a wetland soil? You don't want to plant a native plant that prefers dry, porous soil in a wetlands. It won't survive, and vice versa. Where does your plant naturally like to grow? Sun, shade, or part shade? You also want to think about when it blooms. Ideally, you want to have a native landscape that's going to give you a spring bloom, a summer bloom, a fall bloom. Well, nowadays we might want a winter bloom too. I hope not. That's going to change everything. In the fall, I have noticed a tremendous amount of pollinators that come in, like a whole new set of pollinators that come in through the landscape, different from spring or summer. It's fascinating, really. You also want to consider, where's it native to? Is it native to Mount Shasta? All of Siskiyou County? Maybe just the North County? Is it native to Southern California? Most of California, on the coast. If you plant a native to California, it may not work here, especially if it's coming from, a different part of California. And then some do. These are the things I've experimented with over the years. Here's a completed native landscape. well, I can't say completed because I'm always adding things, changing things. Once a native landscape is established, you'll be pleasantly surprised how little maintenance, weed removal, and water it needs. I only watered these plants a little bit for the first 3 years to keep them established. But this was, again, very minimal. Also, once the soil health is improved, you will get surprises in your yard. I now have an abundance of Shasta lilies and Indian paintbrush. Just another picture of the native landscape, and you'll see there's a variety here. Again, like I say, I have over 60 different species. You can't really tell in these photos, but here's creeping sage, coyote mint, woolly sunflower. There's a different variety of penstemons, sage, and I'm going to show you some pictures, just the ooh and ah pictures of some of the natives. This here is the native mint, coyote mint. Again, woolly sunflower. Right here, I just want to mention this is a white sage, California white sage, which is native to a different part of California, not here, but it grows really well here. I have never watered this. And this is wild ginger here. Some more pictures of natives. Right here is a bunch grass in the foreground. Got some goldenrod here, creeping sage, goldenrod. Of course, the beloved Shasta lily and some Indian paintbrush in the background. This was a volunteer lupin that is spreading in my yard now. It's very happy. Penstemons. What to do with native shrubs? I always go, oh no, don't tear out all those shrubs. There's so many, they're so valuable. I say they're best to clear by hand, even though this is very labor intensive, but you will maintain the soil health. If you take this manzanita, I have cleared under this, and what I call lifted it a little bit, you'll get a really nice layer of duff, 6 to 8 inches deep. And what likes to come up after that are all the wild ginger, which is really nice. It likes the duff layer. This here is a service berry, and it usually grows big and kind of straggly, just like bitter cherry and chinkapin, but I sculpt them. I prune them like a deer would prune it, because it is deer food. And you can get these really nice little smaller plants that become very thick, and they bloom prolifically, and they have these really nice blooms too. The picture doesn't really do it justice, but it was beautiful this spring. You can also leave some of the dead manzanita or other shrubs as part of your landscape. And this is okay with CDF, I asked them, as long as you don't have brush under it. I experiment with drought-tolerant non-natives as well. And some of these you will know, like foxglove, but it does like to be in the shade a little bit more. This is a native scarlet Gilia right here. And euphorbia, this will grow anywhere. This stuff's bomb-proof. But what I find is they definitely don't bring in the pollinators. You'll get pollinators, but you will not get the diversity of pollinators. Lavender, bomb-proof. Never watered it. Dianthus is another one that used to put in potted plants, but it can grow without water. And of course, there's the non-native succulents. There's native succulents as well. The hens and chicks, Louisia, these do like moist soil, but doesn't have, I never water these guys. I might give this one a splash every few weeks or so, just by hand. Sometimes not at all. I do not have an irrigation system in my yard. None at all. Challenges. Growing natives can be challenging. I say, quote unquote, they have a mind and rhythm of their own. That's why I'm fascinated by them. They're unpredictable, especially growing them from seed. Growing natives from seed is a science in itself. Some seeds will wait for many years for the optimal time to germinate. Or, under artificial conditions, their germination needs to be pushed by temperature extremes, abrasion, acid bath, fire. And I've done all of these, trying to get a native to grow. Some works, some doesn't. The one native plant, and you're not going to believe it, that nobody's been able to grow from seed is manzanita. Really. Establishing a native yard takes patience and time, but the rewards are huge. If you choose to go with a native landscape, get guidance, find the right resources. If you end up buying wild seed packets online or at any nursery, you can end up with a nightmare of invasive species. So I highly recommend against it, unless you really know. In conclusion, once a native landscape is established, is there for a lifetime with very little cost, maintenance, or water use. Natives can be beneficial not only in saving water, improving your soil health, and increasing pollinator diversity, but for your pocketbook as well. Maybe the most overlooked part of a native landscape is its inherent aesthetic appeal. The human appreciation of wilderness is incalculable, and when you plant natives, it feels like you've brought a bit of that wilderness into your own backyard. So I thank you guys for everything coming. This works great. I love it. That's fantastic. Yeah. You guys should have used this.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. Did this one? Oh, now it's working. So we filled up our time with some amazing presentations, and some people probably didn't have their dinner yet. So I see a little bit of a movement, and those of you who want to stay over for 5 minutes or so, let's do 5 minutes of questions with our presenters. If you'll just come up and stand in a row, we'll hand the microphone around. Okay, so we have a question about burying the tomatoes and maybe how that drought stick works. Hand this to her.
Burying tomatoes? Yes.
Well, you said something burying it sideways.
You can, you lay them down sideways and just the very top of them is up. Just the very top, this part. And let them grow. The more of the plant that is touching the soil, the more roots you will have, the better the plant will do, the less water it will need. And also, you take the bottom leaves off. You bury them very deep. You know that, right? I'm sorry, what?
I knew that part.
Okay.
Other questions? Okay, right here. Okay, can you tell about the seed balls that you use?
Yes, I make a seed ball out of red art clay, mycorrhizal fungi, native seeds, worm castings, and some what I call Bokashi tea, which is a microbial tea that I create from fermented food to hope to stimulate the germination process in a native seed. Works like enzymes. And the reason why I use these seed balls is to help decrease predation, increase the success of germination, and it also will hold water. So it's been used in restoration projects, and it's the best time to put them out always for any native is late fall. That's actually the best time to plant too. You can put them out any time of year because the seeds are going to wait, but you have less predation in the late fall, and you go through its natural cycle of winter. So, yeah, I hope that helped answer your question.
Yes. Mhm.
Recently had a flood in Sacramento, eroded the bank. And so I was wondering if you could implement some kind of native plants that would propagate quickly and have a root system that would hold the soil together once I repair it.
Okay, so he had a flood along the Sacramento River and is asking about what natives might help repair that bank.
Are you in Dunsmuir? Dunsmuir, okay. So, most likely it would be a native tree or shrub that's grown from cuttings. You know, I could talk to you about that more individually, but that would be what you would want if you want something fast. Willows, big leaf maple.
More wanting to have access to the water so that they're not necessarily trees, but shrubs.
There won't be any fast-growing shrubs. They're woody and they take a really long time to grow. But we can talk some more about that.
All right, so here and then here.
Okay.
Okay, here and then over here.
I just want to talk about gray water, and I just want to know, soaps that we use, laundry, hand, dish soap, etc. What effect does that on plants? Does it have nutrients? Is it complementary? Is it?
Okay.
What does gray water do for plants? And I know there's bacteria and stuff if you use it for vegetables, but for ornamental and trees.
Okay, so soaps and gray water and the effect on plants.
Yeah, I mean, I recommend for whether you're using gray water or not to go with natural, soaps, detergents, and that sorts of thing. I mean, there might be. Yeah, I mean, there's a few things in some soaps that plants might like, but I think the harsh chemicals and those sorts of things just best for any landscape. It's not a good idea. But there are some natural, some things in these natural soaps and whatnot that the plants and the root systems will actually utilize or even process, or so it's amazing what root systems can do.
Soil composition, does soaps going to make the soil more absorb water more quickly, or does it harden and run it off? Because I know that if you use a light detergent in water, you can make it soak into different things. Like you talked about the runoff because of a crust or whatever. Soaps, would they break that down?
Yeah, I guess that would depend a lot on the amount of soaps and detergents, the type, the system, the area that you're just the soil type that you already have. So everything we talked about Jay mentioned getting more organic matter. All of these things the more organic matter you can get, the more enzymes, the more microbes, the more little critters you can get living in the soil, the better. The gray water has lots of nutrients, or can have a lot of nutrients that are just beneficial for the whole thing, but it, again, require maybe some experimentation to see how things react to the different, detergents and soaps that are being incorporated into your gray water system.
Just one question for you, Dylan.
One thing to add is that I've heard that there's phosphorus in detergent, but one of the more important things that you were talking about was that what gets out, stains and clothes is the surfactant quality inside the detergent. And a surfactant also has that same quality then when you apply it to the soil. And they sell surfactants for commercial reasons, like let's say you have a really hard clay and you need more penetration. They sell these products that you can spray and basically it opens up the pores of the soil. But that's a huge benefit of using soap is the surfactant quality of.
Okay, I lost track of the questions. Yeah, be back here.
Sean, with the city's outdoor watering schedule and so forth, do they have any consideration for garden versus landscape and lawns?
Yes, actually they do. It's in the resolution. If you're doing a lawn irrigation with spray nozzles, you're going to be limited to one station or 10 minutes per station. If you were doing a drip system, and that's one time a day for that station. If you're doing a drip system on your vegetable garden, you have 15 minutes a day per station, twice a day. So we are highly encouraging drip systems because they're so much more efficient than sprinkling water all over your lawn. So but it's all in the resolution as well. Yeah.
I have a question for you. You said there's about 200 pages of these regulations. Are they gonna send them out to all the homeowners?
They are, I don't know if they have plans. It should be on the website. It's definitely posted at City Hall. I don't believe they have plans to mail them all out. You could definitely call City Hall and check in with that. And that it should be up on the website. If it is not, and you go to the website and find it's not there, it really should be. So,
If it's not, call you?
You can call me. You can call just Rhonda or Rebecca. They man the desk at City Hall, and they can take care of all that. Yeah.
Okay, 2 more questions here.
I don't want to get into, I'm not trying to get into another deep subject, but maybe there's a quick answer. Given most of the artificial and wonderful systems here for retaining water for our benefit, and with one of the maps that showed the severe drought in the Klamath Basin, from the perspective that we've looked at here, what is your take on the removal of the dams in that area? In 2 words.
That's a big one. I mean, yeah, because we could there's so many, it's a big discussion, the impacts, pros, cons.
Not considering the fish at this point, just with what we've talked about.
My perspective, just general, there really is no need for dams if we were to be doing things in a more decentralized manner. But this is what we got now, so now we're kind of working backwards. But yeah, there's enough rain that falls on the ground everywhere, in most places anyway, even the desert regions where you can subsist and create abundant landscapes and grow food and everything.
I think one last one. I said 2 more. No, we're good? Okay, last question.
Okay, Julia, on the keyhole garden, how does that not burn? When you're putting your compost, you're fresh from the garden, it's walled off. It's completely walled off so that when you're putting your nutrients, all of your garbage right into the center.
Right.
And it doesn't, it's walled off so that how does that work?
There's a, I'm tired. There's a wire that holds the basket. Well, there's different ways to build the basket too. Okay, so you can do it with sticks, and that'll provide a little filter on the way out. Okay, so let's say you build it with sticks, then you have a little filter on the way out. It doesn't burn you're putting like basically green manure in there. So it's composting right there and spreading out. What would burn would be if you had too much nitrogen, if you had a heavy duty fertilizer with too much nitrogen, or if you had a hot poo, like.
Scraps from your garden, from your sink, and from your vegetables, nothing.
Those aren't going to burn. Those don't create burning type of compost.
Even lemons and oranges and everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you all. You're the Water Talks troopers. This is the first time we've run over in a long time, so I apologize and thank you for your time. And our presenters, let's do a round of applause. And also, the presenter contact information is here, and there is another Water Talks next Thursday in this room.